What is your life
Uh,
expectancy?
of course, sir, I'm not going to live forever, as we are human beings and we are mortal. But maybe in the long run, sir, I can put forward some ideas that might remain Shashwat.
Okay, good, good. So you seem to be having a very unique background of having done some fellowship with a member of parliament.
Yes, sir.
So is it with a member from the treasury benches or opposition bench?
No, sir. The member of parliament I worked with was a member from the Treasury bench.
Hmm.
He is a current member of parliament from the Meerut Hapur constituency in Lok Sabha.
Okay. What do you think has been your best contribution to the member of parliament in placing questions for answering by the government?
Yes, sir. Sir, as part of my fellowship, I was required to draft various questions for the question hour in which the MP participates. As part of the discussion, sir, there are two types of questions. One is the starred and the other is unstarred. So generally, all the unstarred questions are put forward, but a specific allotment takes place in case of the starred questions. So my contribution was that the plank on which the member of parliament I was working with won the election was to establish a high court bench in Meerut Hapur, in Meerut region, so that the judicial litigations of Western UP can be managed well. And it was God's grace that at that time the specific question came up in the first five questions of the starred question list. Resultantly, the member of parliament could ask the question directly on the floor of the house to the law minister and also ask two to three supplementaries on the same. So, as part of the question hour, that was my, I think, biggest contribution.
Okay. But considering the fact that the courts have been going online, including the
Yes,
Supreme Court of India, several high courts, there is a mandate for them to hear the advocates or the petitioners online.
yes,
How
sir.
relevant do you think is to have physically a court established, spending a lot of money at different locations in the state?
So my understanding is that even today, a lot of the majority of litigations, especially in the district and the high courts, are taken up physically. The move to undertake e-courts, that is the virtual courts, is a step in the positive regard, which would in the long run make the establishment of multiple benches redundant. But considering the current fact where people from the Western UP were required to travel all the way to Lucknow or to Allahabad for participating in the judicial process. It was a very tumultuous scenario. Sir, in the current scenario, it is relevant. However, my understanding is that in the long run, we would see that with the virtual courts coming up, the tendency to demand more and more high court benches would reduce.
If you were to explain to a member of parliament about the lessons to be drawn from Miss Moitra MP, what lessons do you think the MP should draw from that case of expelling of the MP?
Sir, I would suggest the Honorable Member of Parliament firstly to function within the codes of the rules of conduct of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha respectively, which specifically mentions that all the conduct of MP should be not hampering in any format the integrity and the privilege of the House. In this case, sir, I would request that if we are sharing login credentials of a portal as sensitive as the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha intranet, we should be very careful. And if it is done to an external party, even for, let's say, filling questions or for filling drafts, that should be intimated under the due process to the Lok Sabha Secretariat.
But do you think it is necessary to pass on the login credentials for filling questions, or you think your mail ID contact is good enough for them to send questions and you to put them in proper format?
Sir, I think even if the mail ID system remains as it was 3 to 4 years back,
Mm,
the mail credentials can be shared with an external party.
mm.
So in this case, the Lok Sabha Secretariat created the Lok Sabha digital intranet for the members of parliament so that it makes the overall process of participating in parliamentary interventions very hassle-free. So also, sir, the member of parliament I was working with, I was having his login credentials ID, but that was shared to me under due process after specific training that I undertook and with regular exchanges at Lok Sabha Secretariat with other personal assistants and LAM fellows. So I think, sir, if the member of parliament shares the login credentials, that should be done after certifying certain due processes and intimating the Lok Sabha Secretariat that who he or she is sharing the login credential ID with.
Okay. What do you think has gone wrong in the security aspect of Parliament when on the 13th of December there is a failure? There seems to be a failure. What's your assessment, and what is to be done to ensure that such things don't recur?
Sir, in my perspective, what I could gather from the reports was that on the specific day, there was a major security lapse where some young members, some disenchanted young persons entered the parliament and had a non-fatal blast inside the premises. Of course, sir, firstly, there were reports that the sensor alarms were not functioning. They could not detect initially that there was a specific blast of that kind. Secondly, sir, in fact, from my own experience, the overall security apparatus in Parliament is very robust. But as we have moved to a new Parliament, we have to ensure that the overall deployment of security personnel is done in a very end-to-end manner, so that no area is left untouched. So we have to remap the overall security apparatus of the new parliamentary structure, new Parliament building as well in that regard.
Okay. Now let us come out of Parliament and go to Varanasi and try and compare and contrast the civic administration and the issues for the municipal commissioners of, say, New Delhi and Varanasi. What do you think are the issues which are challenging the municipal commissioners of these two cities?
So the overall challenges faced by the administrators, such as those of the municipal commissioners, is very different in both the places.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, sir, in Varanasi, the overall issues were very local. The issues concerning the distribution of electricity wirings came up recently. The municipal commissioners are also taking up issues of managing the overall cultural aspects of the Kashi Vishwanath corridor.
Hello.
In case of
Carry on.
Yes, sir. In case of Delhi, sir, the overall issues are very different. For instance, in Delhi, one of the challenges which the municipal commissioners face is with respect to the accountability aspect. There is still a lack of clarity who the municipal commissioner should report to, whether it should be the elected government or he or she should report to, in this case, the central government. Also, sir, Delhi, being the capital, has a very has multiplicity of governance institutions. For instance, there is also the New Delhi Municipal Corporation. There is also the various MCDs, as well as the Delhi Cantonment Board and other bodies which the municipal commissioner may be part of. So their duties would differ in that regard.
Okay. Yeah. Now, tell me, you also appeared for the Combined Defense Services exam.
Yes, sir.
If you were selected, which arm of the forces that you would have joined? Army, Air Force, or Navy?
Sir, I would have probably joined the armed forces.
Armed forces. Okay. Can you tell me what are the ranks in the commissioned officers in the Indian Army?
Sir, I don't have an exact detailed idea of the ranks.
Okay.
But I'll take a tab on that, sir.
Okay. Now you seem to have led the Swachh Bharat internship in your college. Now,
Yes,
what is your impression about how Swachh Bharat scheme has been implemented in the country?
So the United Nations has considered the Swachh Bharat mission of the Government of India as a major impetus in achieving the Sustainable Development Goal of 6, that is drinking water and sanitation.
Mm-hmm.
In this regard, the UN has recognized that the overall mission has clearly moved towards making India open defecation free, as well as promoting waste management in various ways. It has also recognized that it has a very positive impact on the health of especially the women in the rural areas, where they used to defecate in the open in the mornings, are now shifting to what is called as the twin pit toilet structures. In this regard, sir, the UN has also awarded India, in case of the SDG goal number 6, recognizing the contribution of the Swachh Bharat mission.
Now, there is a criticism that by constructing toilets without providing access to water for cleaning, we have declared some towns and cities as ODS cities and towns. From your Varanasi experience, do you agree with this kind of bluff that has been projected?
Sir, in Varanasi, especially in the rural areas, the toilets have a water supply because the shortage of water is not a problem in a plain like Varanasi.
Thank you. Thank you. Reddy garu.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, can you hear? Reddy garu, you are in mute, I think.
Yeah.
All right.
Now. Morning, SHASWAT. How are you?
Good, sir.
Good. Good to know. I could see your education profile. You took BA Hons from Maharaja Agrarsena College. Then
Yes,
in political science. Then again you went to MA. That is a different subject altogether. Development and labor studies. Is there any particular reason for changing this? You could have gone to MA political science.
Yes, sir. Sir, I chose development studies specifically because the subject of development is very interdisciplinary in nature. So, sir, as part of this course, I could study multiple subjects. I could take up subjects, and there was option also, sir, in JNU where we can take subjects from multiple schools. So I combined a lot of other subjects, for instance, subjects of economics, of international relations, of labor studies, of sociology together in this course. So because I wanted to get a holistic understanding of a lot of other subjects to enter the job market afterwards, I decided to take up development studies rather than pursuing just political science.
Okay, again, you chose for your optionals, political science and international relations.
Yes, sir.
Do you think the India stand in present crisis in Israel and Gaza is right?
Well, the India's stand in the present crisis of in the Israel-Palestine issue is essentially that firstly, India condemns all forms of terrorism that emanates from any part of the world. However, having said that, India also maintains that the Palestinian concern should be respected and human rights should not be violated in the Palestinian region. In this regard, India supports a two-state solution between Israel and Palestine. So my understanding is that India's stance of Israel-Palestine issue is holistic, which addresses the concerns on both the sides of the parties, that is Israel as well as Palestine, and pushes for a sustainable solution that can promote long-term peace in the region.
Don't you think the India stand has changed historically? What we used to do, we used to support Palestinians, but now we are more pro to Israel due to certain reasons. Do you think it's a correct stand to change? And again, you said about protecting the human rights of Palestinians. Like, the protection means South Africa has gone to international court on genocide charges. Like that, number of countries have taken very strong steps. But what steps do you think the government of India should take apart from giving humanitarian aid?
Sir, in my understanding, India has successfully dehyphenated its relationships with both Israel and Palestine, wherein India maintains independent relations with both the regions, considering its own interests and values. In this regard, sir, India's increasing relationship with Israel is based on strong defense ties as well as technology-related cooperation with Israel. Sir, the increasing relationship with Israel, however, has not diluted India's support to Palestine. Even recently, we have provided humanitarian assistance under UNRWA to Palestine. Taking strong stance for Palestine, for instance, pushing towards for the Genocide Convention's application through the ICJ route, in my understanding, would only accentuate the situation in this regard. Wherein what we should do is that we should try to bring both the parties on the table so that some kind of a ceasefire agreement and a peace solution be brought and a buffer zone be created, for instance, in the Philadelphia region between Israel and Palestine. and allow the migrated Palestinians to return back to the region.
Yeah, because other countries are doing a lot in terms of not only humanitarian assistance, but they're condemning outrightly the actions of Israel, disproportionate use of force on the Palestinians. That is the term they used for most of the countries, in fact, except the European and US. But India has not done any of those things. Second thing is our stand in the UN has not been, with the others. First, we try to abstain from the voting.
Yes, sir.
So, but don't you think that India has to go in these lines also to protect the lives and properties of the Palestinians?
Sir, in my understanding, India's own interest would be served better if India tries to maintain peace and stability in the region by using its own leverage to talk with both the parties at the same pedestal. If we openly condemn Israel, that might not serve the situation any better in this case, as Israel is very determined to eradicate Hamas from the Palestinian region in order to protect its security. On contrary to that, sir, if we can create a transformed Palestinian Authority through cooperation with with the specific organization, allow more cooperation with Israel so that some ceasefire can be achieved, and create some kind of a peace-related agreement between the two sides. In the long run, that should showcase a path towards the two-state solution. In my understanding, sir, that would be a more sustainable solution to this issue.
That's good. But don't you think the India, like Egypt has done, Qatar has done initiation of talks, negotiations, and other things, but India has not done anything so far. So, apart from government view, what do you think personally? Is it a correct thing for Israel to go all out and kill more than 10,000 people now for the atrocities committed in one day?
No, sir. My own opinion is that Israel actually lost the entire narrative after October 17th when it went all out against Palestine. Because initially, Israel had a major global support when Hamas had attacked Israel. And Israel could have rather strengthened its own security apparatus as well as covert military operations in Palestine rather than opening a new offensive front against the Hamas. In this case, sir, we see that there are massive loss of lives. 23,000 to talk about some major reports that have actually put Israel in the question itself, putting even South Africa taking the Genocide Convention a specific clause to ICJ. So, sir, I would have never suggested, if required, to the Israeli leadership that such actions should be taken, because that actually puts the overall Israeli perspective in question of what is essential objective of Israel, to eradicate Hamas or to capture the Palestinian region.
In case you are posted in Israel as an IFS officer, what will be your advocacy there, both for the Palestinians as well as Israelis?
Sir, I would have advocated the Israelis to look in the long-term perspective and not in the short-term perspective, to create a more sustainable, peaceful region. Firstly, sir, to Israel, I would have requested to have a more negotiated agreements, or at least some peace settlement with the Palestinian Authority, which is a relatively peaceful organization, in order to have a sustainable two-state solution model to be implemented. I would have requested them to prioritize the human lives first and protect the human rights of Palestinians as well, by not encroaching on the settlements of the Palestinian region. However, I would have also suggested them to continue covert military operations against some of the terrorist elements like Hamas and Hezbollah. To Palestinians, sir, my suggestion would have been to have a larger people-to-people contact with the Palestinians, so that they also consider the Palestinian Authority as a more legitimate state institution rather than terror elements like Hamas. And secondly, sir, some of the regions in Palestine, for example, in Gaza itself, where Hamas resides, the belief is that even they do not believe in the two-state solution. Even they prescribe for a one-state solution, where from the river to the sea, they believe in Palestine to be in entirety. they also need to now move forward and accept the new reality where two-state solution should be accepted even by a common Palestinian.
Don't you think the embassies and those who are placed in Israel, can't they put a pressure on the Israeli government to stop at least the killing of the people now? And why America has failed to do so far?
Sir, America has in this case failed to do so. Achieving a ceasefire in this regard is because of many reasons. So firstly, sir, the political leadership in Israel under Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is very hell-bent to showcase to its domestic political constituency that they are very tight on ensuring the security of Israel. And in this regard, they are focusing on a major offense rather than going for a defensive offensive in this case. Secondly, sir, America itself has a very strong political, domestic political constituents of the Jews, which supports the Israeli cause. Resultantly, sir, it is also famously said that Israel is the 51st state of United States. So United States has actually disfavored nudging Israel towards any specific direction. So these are the two things that I can think of that makes America fail to bring a ceasefire in this regard.
Good. I was looking at your the hobbies you mentioned about heritage walks, undertaking
Yes, sir.
heritage walks. How they differ from the normal walks?
The heritage walk is a more nuanced stroll in the heritage sites, where we just do not visit these sites, but also try to appreciate their cultural, historical, and heritage perspectives. We try to understand the history behind the specific heritage site as well.
Okay. And also you wrote a reflective diary writing.
Yes, sir.
What exactly, how does it differ from normal diary writing? I think everybody will write a diary writing.
The reflective diary writing is a more self-introspecting and self-exploratory form of diary writing, wherein I reflect on my thoughts as well as things that happen around in society and try to assimilate the learnings that I can make from them.
Can you give some examples? What reflective diary writing you did on what issues?
There are a lot of this reflection also goes on that is related to my own personal life. For instance, sir, in my while I was preparing for the mains exam, I had a major family crisis back at home, and I was not able to cope up with it. But this practice helped me a lot to understand and to get out of that specific zone. I realized that in life there are controlled controllables and uncontrolled uncontrollables, and which we should only focus on those things that are in our control and leave to the fate those things that are uncontrollables.
You also mentioned that you organized a university sports meet.
Yes,
in
sir.
what capacity you organized? Is it a secretary? Is it a president? Is it overall in charge of organization of the sports? And what sports you organized?
Sir, I was a member of the NSS. I was not on any leadership position in the NSS at that time when this university sports meet was being organized. This was specifically for the persons with disabilities in JNU who in the sports, the para sports related event. And so various organizations included, so there was badminton, there was tennis, there was also a 100-meter and a 200-meter race that was organized. So these were the games that I was also directly involved with.
Yeah. What do you think the issues or problems cropped up and during the organization of the sports meet?
So one of the problems that we faced was the crunch in terms of funding of the overall event at that time. So we had to reach out to external sponsors as well in order to undertake the event. So the second was that the infrastructure availability for the persons with disabilities is very low in our university campuses. Generally, the availability of wheelchairs and other facilities is not that at par, let's say, with some other global universities. So arranging them was also a challenge for us.
I hope in case you have to organize again, You have the lessons drawn, you reflected your reflective diary writing.
Sure, sir.
Huh? Okay. Then you said you are the team led in the Star Innovation Project.
Yes, sir.
What exactly the Star Innovation projects are? Number of them, writing right from cyber securities, then the culture and communications, and which part of Star's Innovation project you undertook?
Sir, I was involved in the commercial space, which
Oh.
had a specific thesis of workspace optimization. So that thesis dealt with how a specific workspace, whether in an educational institution or in a corporate office, can be optimized so that the productivity of individuals can be increased.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much. In fact, you have done well, I must say.
Thank you, sir.
Over to Vivek.
Hello, Shashwat.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, I'm audible to you, visible also.
Yes,
as
sir.
well? Yeah, good. After your BA, you went to JNU, probably for about a year or so, I think. I was wondering, why JNU is always in news, sometimes, for right reasons and mostly for wrong reasons. What is it, that makes JNU the epicenter of all the activities, either, pro-India, anti-India? So why is that, JNU stands on a different footing altogether? Do you have any insights?
So from my own experience in JNU, my understanding is that JNU has enormous amount of diversity in terms of the students, in terms of the ideology of the students, and in terms of the political parties that exist in the university campus. And sir, considering this fact, because of so much of diversity, there is also conflict of ideas that at times lead to tensions. When these tensions are reflected outside the premises of the campus, they look very conflictual in nature. However, within university campus, these are resolved in a very amicable way, which at times become violent and should be abhorred in all its forms. However, sir, JNU is, in my perspective, known more for its positives than negatives, where we have actually produced some of the best administrators, diplomats, as well as researchers across the country.
Mhm. But I think most of the student unions are backed by some political party or the other. Is it a good thing to happen?
Sir, in a democracy,
After all, students must be, concerned with academic standards and quality of education and so on and so forth. But then majority of them seem to be taking, aligning themselves with political parties, and then, they are almost like outfits, the student outfits of political parties. And are they trying to, walk into the shoes of politicians, or what exactly, is happening there?
sir, in a democracy, these are political parties that actually modulate and mobilize the public opinion. And so, my own understanding has been that democratization of youth politics has been one of the greatest contribution of the post 1990s political movements in India, and JNU has been a major part of that. When a student organization is associated with a political party, it not just gives them a specific ideological backing, but it also gives them a specific direction in terms of the leadership, and also direction in terms of the youth political leadership to join the major political mainstream. So I consider it, sir, as a very positive aspect of India's youth politics, where students can look up to these student bodies to join the politics in the long run.
I see. Because I find that, places like JNU, Delhi University elections are more or less fought as if, they are like general elections of the country. So I was
Yes, sir,
just
indeed.
I was just wondering whether it is a good thing to, happen on, places of academic institutions. So should associations, student associations be aligned with political parties? I do really have a lot of, apprehensions about it.
Sir, there should be certain rules of conduct that should be put in place. For instance, these student outfits, which are backed by political parties, should prioritize the interests of the students and the youth first,
Yeah.
and should not take up the larger ideological objective of the political party per se.
Mhm.
And also, sir, at times the political conflict is also reflected in the student politics, where violence and other activities occur in university campuses. These should be refrained at all costs.
But does that not affect your academic environment? So students will be spending more time either defending or opposing a political party, its ideology and politicians. And then does it, academics become a casualty in the whole process?
Sir, in my own experience, while studying as a student at JNU, so political education is also a very important aspect of education.
No,
In
agreed that,
fact,
yeah,
the
agreed that,
understanding of
one must
politics
be,
from such close
yeah,
proximity.
yeah. We are all political animals, as a
Yes,
student
sir.
of political science, But then if you invest too much of your time and energy in politics, after all, the whole purpose of joining a university to, gain knowledge and become a useful member of society, is at, I think, becomes a casual, I suppose.
Yes, sir. So, in fact, I would agree to that perspective. And in the university campuses, students should be taught that politics should be, if they are participating at all in it, should be treated as a vocation rather than as a full-time course. And their major focus should be on their education and academics.
Yeah. Now, you also did what is called development and labor studies. Um, I remember we have consolidated and codified various labor laws. And
Yes,
then
sir.
I was just trying to know from you, what has been the impact of this consolidation and codification of these laws, and how it has actually impacted the ecosystem of industry and the labor, and then has the impact been any to the benefit of the employees or the employers? Which way is the balance tilted?
So the four labor codes have essentially have firstly, sir, simplified and rationalized the otherwise very lengthy and very overarching labor laws that were in multiplicity existentially. These are at times overlapping and at times conflictual also in nature, causing major in disputes and legal cases. So that is the first benefit of these laws. Secondly, sir, they have also transformed the industrial relations substantially. For instance, the initial threshold of retrenching workers has been extended from that of 100 to 300. The Code on Industrial Relations also provides for creation of sole negotiating union and trade councils for the workers to resolve disputes with the employers. So in this regard, it has attained to bring a balance between employer and the employees in a more nuanced fashion as per the requirements of the 21st century, so that ease of doing business is also maintained alongside with protection of labor rights. And thirdly, sir, it has also tried to bring to the fore the social security aspects of various new labor that is entering in the market. For instance, the Social Security Code talks about the gig workers, the unorganized workers, and the unpaid women workers as well, and has ensured that some kind of social security is extended to them as well.
But I somewhere gather, I mean, correct me if I am wrong, uh, an employer can show the door to, a workman, more easily today after codification and the so-called, reform of labor laws. Is that true?
Sir, it would depend essentially on what kind of worker is working in the organization. For instance, if the worker is under FTE, that is fixed term employment, then the rules of entrenchment are similar to that of a normal worker, but only up till the tenured period he or she is allotted to. If the worker is a contractual worker, which is actually a major concern and an increasing trend in recent times, then the retrenchment of workers has become relatively easier. And thirdly, sir, if the worker is a part of the informal worker, if he or she is an informal worker, even in the organized space, then the condition is the most abhorrent, where even there is lack of job and income security to these workers. So my own understanding is that we need to do more in terms of providing labor protection to those kind of workers at a priority.
How has it actually benefited the gig workers?
So it has brought a specific social security fund for the gig workers at the national level, and the states have been requested to create the same at the state level, which would provide them specific insurance support, pension support. A contribution of that can come from the workers, from the employers, as well as from the state in that regard.
I understand where you are coming from. But I was just wondering if it has actually fast-tracked, dispute resolution mechanism.
So the dispute resolution mechanism has been shifted from the erstwhile labor courts to that of a mediation mechanism that can be undertaken between employer and the employees. Sir, since it is very early to point out that whether the process of resolution mechanism has been fastened or not, and I think some more time would be required to judge on that aspect in the coming times.
Okay. Okay. Now, what is the current status of the common civil code? The so-called CAA. There are, I think, people who welcome it. There are some who oppose it. Some who think that it is actually a violation of their personal space, so on and so forth. So, what is the way forward?
So the Common Civil Code essentially is aimed towards bringing common law in terms of inheritance, adoption, and other related issues concerning the citizens, overpowering even the personal laws of some of the religions. So the current state is that the central government has formulated the last law commission has actually taken up the issue of the Uniform Civil Code and has brought out a report which indicates towards hastening the process. However, some of the state governments have formed a committee already in this regard. For instance, Uttarakhand has formulated a committee that is creating a draft uniform civil code. And certain states like Assam have pointed towards moving in that direction as well. So considering the report of the last law commission, my own understanding is that our objective should be to bring a larger consensus among all the religious communities, first with regards to the uniform civil code, so that there is a lack of tensions in terms of implementing the same. Also, so we will have to find out modalities as to how these would be implemented, if in case they are, with respect to those tribal communities in the Northeast and other regions that have their own personal laws in place.
Are the rules in place now? I understand the rules are not in place. Is it correct?
Yes, sir. In my own understanding, the rules are not in place as of now.
Okay. Now, should this entire issue be placed in the central list or state list or concurrent list?
So to my understanding, these should go in the concurrent list because a lot of these aspects are codified by the states, whereas some of them are codified by the center. So concurrent list would serve the best in this regard.
Oh, I see. Or is it because of the diversity that India has? So that, the state specific or region specific, nuances can be factored into the new law.
Yes, sir. In fact, if it is,
Could that be the reason why you are suggesting that it should be in the concurrent list?
yes, sir. In fact, it could be a balance between both, wherein the state's nuances and cultural specificities can also be integrated. But at the same time, some commonality at the central level can also be maintained.
Okay. Once again, talking about your heritage walks, when you go through these sites and these places and all that, you are also reminded of history, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. But, of late, history has become very emotive. And also, it has started assuming all kinds of colors. By promoting these heritage walks and, are we not reviving the past memories, some of which are not really very pleasant? So should we really go ahead and, undertake these heritage walks? Or, let this as they say, let bygones be bygones, and let us look forward, build a new India, and things like that.
Sir, in my understanding, sir, we should undertake more of heritage walks in order to understand our history better. It is famously said that the more we understand where we come from, we would be clearer where we would go. So, sir, in this regard, heritage walks would serve the purpose of not just awareing the citizens with respect to the history they have, not just in terms of the rich cultural past, but also in terms of the conflicts they have had in the past. So, sir, our generation should not just be taught about the pride that we should hold for our history. That should definitely remain steadfast. We should also be very cautious about the things that have not happened to us well in the history, whether it was the colonial experience or otherwise. And we should appreciate that as a society, we have come out of it and yet maintained our diversity and dignity in all senses. Sir, Heritage Walk would make us more tolerant and more inclusive in this regard.
No, but it will also, rekindle some of the forgotten, unpleasant memories, and then try to have a negative impact on the mind of the people. Suppose you come across a destroyed temple or vandalized temple and all that. Suddenly you are reminded of, what happened in the past, and some very unpleasant memories, come back to your mind. So that might have a negative impact on the people, right?
So that would depend on how we are making the modalities of these heritage walks. For instance, if we try to bring out the old stories of conflicts among communities, that could definitely have a major impact in terms of creating divides. But if we showcase that in a positive light, that despite there being destructions, let's say in case of, for instance, the Somnath temple,
Yes.
despite being destroyed many times, the temple has remained steadfast and got created again and again. So the same happened in case of the Kashi Vishwanath temple as well. So we can take a inspiration from this as well, that if we are very strong to our cultural roots, then our culture would prosper no matter what happens to us.
Okay. But that also brings us to the question of the model of secularism that we in India follow. There are quite contrasting approaches to understanding secularism in our country, right? Some say that state should maintain equidistance. Some say that state should selectively associate itself with different faiths and all that. What is that, why there is so much of confusion about the model of secularism that India follows? And in spite of, now we are into 75th year of our freedom, and still we haven't really sort of, crystallized what kind of secularism we want. I think where there is a fault lie actually. Do you have any thoughts on this?
Sir, in my understanding, the major conflict occurs with respect to understanding the model of secularism that India should have. Whether we should emulate the Western model of secularism with a strict separation between the state or religion, or we should follow a more Indian version of secularism, which has religious very much integrated into the psyche of the people. And religion is not very much different from our own culture and faith as well. So, sir, this actually leads to the contest where maybe probably in the past decades after independence, we created a model of secularism that was not very much rooted in the people of India, and that was departed among few intellectual elites. So in this regard, secularism became a very negative connotation despite having such positive subjective interpretation to it. To this regard, my understanding is that we should create a new model of secularism that treats all religions equally, that maintains a principled distance between the state and religion, but allows state and religion to become a part of each other at times whenever required so. And in this regard, we should also make sure that the protection interests of the minorities are protected at all costs, so that they don't feel secluded in any fashion, that there is domination of any mainstream religion in this regard.
Yeah, since you mentioned, the word minorities, there is a criticism that actually, unlike the Muslims, the Jains, Buddhists, Sikhs, and others, they are the real minorities, and somehow the state had erred in identifying Muslims as minority. Do you have any view on this issue?
So the Honorable Supreme Court had taken a cognizance on how we should define the minorities. And they came up that it's because the Indian Constitution does not specify this in any regard. So we took up religious minority as well as linguistic minority as two forms of designation with which we can define minorities. As of regards, sir, Muslims being minority in terms of the population have been given the status of minorities, and other religions have either their language as a minority in itself or have a very dwindling population. For instance, in case of Parsis, have found the minority status.
So if going by the numbers as a criterion for determining the status of minority, I somewhere read, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong. The Hindus or Pandits are in Kashmir, though numerically very few, do not really enjoy the status of minority. Why is it so? I think we have a very flawed kind of understanding of minority in my view. Do you agree with this?
So the Honorable Supreme Court had also taken a cognizance of the view whether we should define minorities and give them the minority status based on the state, the population in a specific state. And the Supreme Court has identified, sir, that minorities should be identified at a pan-national level only, and defining minorities at the state level might create complications otherwise. And sir, the major reason is not just cultural but also administrative. That if we start defining minorities, let's say with respect to the states, some minorities that are majorities in some of the states might find a minority status and can create conflicts and tensions in that specific state per se.
Are you familiar with Gramsci's concept of hegemony?
Yes, sir, I have read about it.
What is it about, and how does it, is it really playing in the Indian context?
So the Gramscian concept of hegemony essentially talks that the model of capitalism as it was prevalent in Europe in those times essentially creates a hegemonic structure where the capitalists and the deep state enjoys control over the larger masses by establishing hegemony, not just through a physical or coercive means, but also through what he calls as the soft power that the intellectuals have a control over. So my own understanding is that extrapolating Gramscian concept of hegemony in the Indian context would be very problematic, because that was very much that was a Eurocentric concept. Also, sir, the model of the Marxian-Leninist model that was prescribed in those times is not found to be very true in the Indian context. So in that case, it would be very difficult to extrapolate Gramscian model in the Indian scenario.
Now, the way, post-liberalization, the trajectory of Indian economic development, the whole political economy seems to be moving more towards, the classical capitalist model in our country, looking at, some corporates becoming super rich and finding place in Forbes list and all that stuff. Is it really a good thing to have happened in a country like India, where there is still, according to the statistics put out by Niti Aayog and all the government websites and all that, PM Garib Kalyan Yojana reaches as many as 80 crore people. So what is actually happening? Is there so much of wealth concentration in our country, and are we really pursuing a very flawed model of economic development? I wonder sometimes.
So the neoliberal model of economic development that we took up after 1991 essentially allowed for a promotion of free enterprises, where free trade and investments can bolster capitalism and in turn promote economic growth. So as it has been pointed out in various economic theories, that this model essentially leads to increase in the inequalities first, and then gradual improvement in the overall incomes of all the sections of society. So, sir, as part of that, we are seeing the reflections of increasing income inequality in India with some of the corporates coming up. So the glaring concern that I also share alongside with you is that there is also a specific angle of monopoly capitalism that might come with this model of capitalistic development that may in turn hamper the overall objective of free enterprises itself. In this regard, sir, the institutions like the Competition Commission of India, the SEBI, and other regulators are very important and should be very independent as well. Also, sir, with regards to the angle of hegemony that you brought in this, my own understanding is that we have to have also a parallel welfare model wherein the state makes sure that a specific amount of social security is ensured for all its citizens, whether in terms of the right to employment as part of Manrega or right to education as part of the NEP or the erstwhile RTE. In this regard, sir, I think if we follow a model of free enterprises alongside with a strong social welfare support, we would be able to bolster our economy in the long run.
In what essential way you draw a line between welfare and freebie? Suppose, I am a politician and you are my chief secretary, and I want your advice on some of the schemes that I have in mind, and ask you to decide whether something is a freebie or something is, a welfare. By way of applying what criterion, we should decide that something is a freebie and something is really welfare.
So the distinction between freebies and welfare should emanate out of the externalities that a specific deliverable has. For instance, a freebie would become a welfare if it has a very high positive externality. To quote an example, sir, in 2005-06, the Bihar government distributed bicycles to the female students, and we saw a successive rise in the overall literacy rate of women and a decline in the total fertility rate in Bihar. This could be quoted as a freebie, but it had a very positive externality for the lives of women and the overall families. Similar benefits we have seen in MP with respect to the Ladli Behna Yojana as well. However, sir, we need to refrain with respect to distribution of freebies that may have negative externalities in the long run. For instance, distribution of free electricity, distribution of, let's say, free rides in metros and other such facilities can have a very specific, not just populist connotation, but also have negative fiscal complications in the long run.
But I thought, when Delhi government introduced, free bus rides to women, it was seen as the empowerment of women as such, because they can travel without having to spend money, to report to work. And then it brought, many women into, workforce and all that. But you seem to sound a different note altogether on that issue.
No, sir. So my own understanding is that for free bus rides, should women is still a considerably a positive development. However, there are plans in Delhi government itself that there should be extension of these free rides to students and to some other sections as well. And even there is a proposal in this regard for the metro as well. So that can create a very deplorable negative fiscal impact in the long run for the transport services.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
Sir,
sir.
back to you, sir. Gopal, sir. I am done, sir.
Srinivas Sanidhanam or P.H. Singh, are you available?
Yes, sir.
Srinivas Garu, please go ahead.
Hello, Shashwat. Good morning.
Sir.
Good morning to all the panelists. So, Shashwat, like you talked about the heritage walk, isn't it? When you were talking to the registrar. So now, what are the difference between three types of heritage? Cultural heritage, geological heritage, and the natural heritage. Can you give the difference among the three terms?
Sir, I'm so sorry, sir. Your voice was a little breaking. Can you please repeat the question once?
Okay. So just I want a difference among the three terms: cultural heritage, geological heritage, and the natural heritage.
Okay, sir. So geological heritage refers to heritage sites that represent a specific geological aspect of our surrounding. For instance, sir, in Japan, there is a specific region which is very prone to earthquakes and is part of the convergence of the various tectonic plates and is viewed by the visitors. That can be considered as a geological heritage site. Even in case of India, sir, we see these geological sites in Andaman and Nicobar and other regions. So the natural heritage sites are regions that represent a specific aspect of nature, which have certain attributes like endemic species and wildlife populations, or some form of flora and fauna that are protected or endemic in some form. For instance, Western Ghats in case of India is also a part of the UNESCO's heritage site. And thirdly, so the cultural sites are aspects of various heritage structures that have otherwise evolved by the anthropological impacts and their contributions in architecture, in development of people to people contact over the time. For instance, Dholavira and various temples in India, they can be considered as cultural heritage sites.
Okay, great. Right. So, there is a situation in India where the demographic divide and labor issues with the modernization of AIs and all are contradicting. Can you comment on it?
So the rise of artificial intelligence has created new tensions in various economies as to how the emerging
Be specific with respect
demographies.
to India. Okay.
Yes, sir. In case of India itself, sir, because we have more than 80 lakh workforce, 80 lakh young members joining the workforce annually, there's a rising challenge as to rise of artificial intelligence might cause increase in unemployment and increase in a major demographic imbalance in terms of the labor force participation rate. So in this regard, we need to promote unskilling and reskilling of our labor, where they are reskilled with respect to various aspects of artificial intelligence, LLMs, that are large language models, and new computer algorithms that take up machine learning and other aspects of the new models of IR 4.0, that is the Industrial Revolution 4.0, into its regard. And secondly, sir, we also need to promote reskilling of our manufacturing workers that might become redundant with the emanation of new industries like new machines like 3D modeling. So they also have to be given certain, firstly, aspect of social security, and secondly, certain aspect of new models of apprenticeship, so that they can adjust to these changes in the model machinery.
Okay. Many new developers of Indians are thinking that like this growth pole, growth center, old model is not working in India. We have to look into the new dimensions of it. So what were the drawbacks of the old growth pole and growth center concept which started in 1950s? Okay, number one. Number two is what are the new strategies should be adopted for the new India?
So the erstwhile growth model has various limitations. Firstly, it missed out on the aspect of the rising inequality among the Indian masses, where the steadfast focus on the GDP growth missed out on as to what has been its impact on which section of the Indian society. For instance, the rich are becoming richer at a much faster pace compared to the way the poorest are becoming rich. Secondly, it has had a very negative externalities in terms of other aspects like environment. We have seen a degree of environmental degradation with economic development, especially in the hilly regions like Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand, where events of environmental catastrophe has increased. So my own model of development is what has been recognized by UN as sustainable development, wherein we focus on development with all its externalities into consideration. Firstly, we need to focus on creating high-end jobs at the lower levels of the society by promoting MSMEs and SHGs. Secondly, sir, we have to integrate environmental accounting in our overall developmental criteria so that our development does not come at the cost of the environmental damage. And thirdly, sir, we also need to move towards the reign of labor flexibility as we have today, where the employers can retrench laborers, to that of labor sensitivity, where a degree of social security is ensured to all workers and even to the laborers of the last mile.
Okay, so new laws of labors is like more in favor of employer, not in favor of employees. Do you agree?
My understanding is that the new laws aim to balance between the interest of the employers and the employees. With respect to employers, to promote ease of doing business, they have increased the threshold of retrenchment from 100 to 300. But in the interest of the employees, they have allowed more bolstered dispute resolution mechanisms, as well as a new social security fund for the emanating type of labors like the gig workers, the unorganized workers, and the unpaid women workers.
So recent times, like last 4 5 years of data I was going through, large number of industrial unrest happens. Okay. So like where
Yes,
the
sir.
employers and the employees came into conflict zone. So what can you, along with the examples, can you cite the reasons for that disputes and what are the measures adopted by the government and the management both?
So one of the industrial dispute that I can recall was the Maruti industrial dispute in Haryana in 2013, wherein the workers of Maruti undertook a protest against the Maruti for the delays in the payment of wages and the overwork that they had to undergo. In this regard, sir, the government actually formulated a commission that was represented by the employers and the employees and government officials, and came to an agreement between all the three sections. So, sir, major industrial unrest should be addressed by focusing on bringing a mediation among all the stakeholders and to have a balance of interest so that the right of the employers as well as employees is not sacrificed.
Okay, right. Just 2 years back in Bangalore, also such incident happened with the Apple store. You heard of this thing, I think. You heard this
Yes,
thing?
sir.
Yeah, right.
Yes, sir. I have heard about the same.
Okay, great, great. So now you belongs to Varanasi, as I can see in your def. So
Yes,
you
sir.
haven't been participate leadership position in the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. Like now you try to correlate two things. Varanasi is a cultural city. So if you go inside the Varanasi, the hotspot, like is it not, is it really clean now due to Swachh Bharat Abhiyan? So what are the other steps has to be taken? What are the reasons for its environmental degradation? And what are the steps are taken by the government in the recent times to overcome that? Can you comment on it?
Yes, sir. So Varanasi had a problem of sanitation because of heavily congested roads, unplanned settlements, and poor urban governance. In this regard, sir, the Swachh Bharat mission undertaken in Varanasi had a very positive impact, where the government steadfastly promoted beautification of ghats, the beautification of temple premises, the expansion of roads, and the overall improvement in the waste management mechanisms. Sir, we can therefore see a very tangible difference in the overall sanitation of Varanasi now when we visit even the mainstream areas of Varanasi. However, some more needs to be done. For instance, the liquid waste management in Varanasi is still a distant dream because the overall sewage treatment plants that are established in Varanasi that discharge the wastes in River Ganga is not at par with the current requirements of Varanasi's settlement. Secondly, so the waste management also needs to become more streamlined, where we need to promote the source segregation of waste at the doorstep itself, so that the overall in a more nuanced fashion.
Great, great, great. So, Shashwat, Varanasi is a heritage city. So, just tell me about if I want to visit Varanasi. So, what will be the epicenters there?
So if you come to Varanasi, you can visit various places. Firstly, so you can visit the Kashi Vishwanath corridor that has been recently built, where you can visit the main Vishweshwara temple. Secondly, sir, you can also visit the Sankat Mochan temple that was established by Tulsi Das, where he wrote the famous Ramcharitmanas. Thirdly, sir, you can visit Sarnath, where Lord Buddha gave his first summon. Fourthly, sir, there are some other temple sites that you can visit. For instance, there is a famous Vishalakshi temple, which is Shakti Peeth in Varanasi. There's a Bharat Mata Mandir in Varanasi that was established by Mahatma Gandhi. So these are the areas that you can definitely visit on coming to Varanasi.
Great, great, great. Now the tourism become the one of the best source of income and development for the regional and local economy. So now growing tourism in Himalayan state is causing an havoc. Okay, you heard of the issues like the sinking of the cities of Uttarakhand, Himachal Pradesh, isn't it in the recent time?
Yes, sir.
So, right, is it sustainable tourism model is, can you suggest will be the sustainable tourism model to be adopted in Himalayan states of India?
The sustainable model of development in the Himalayan states would be when we follow when we integrate the overall environmental impact of such infrastructure development projects into the account while planning these projects. For instance, the Char Dham project in Uttarakhand received major criticism for the expansion of roads, causing the loss of the Rajaji National Park as well. However, the government went ahead with the specific project, and we saw the major Silkyara tunnel case happening around. So, sir, in this regard, my own understanding is that environmental accounting has to be very much a critical part of the infrastructure development with respect to the Himalayan states. Various committees like the Ravi Chopra committees have also suggested that dams that are constructed in the Himalayan regions should also be developed only after due diligence and investigation as per what would be the impact on the overall environment.
Okay, you heard of 2020, the new rules has come up on EIA, environmental impact assessment.
Yes, sir.
So that is more in favor of development rather than in favor of environmental balance, because many environmentalists has criticized the new draft and the bill.
Yes, sir. So the new rules of environmental impact assessment in 2020 essentially reduced the overall window of the time that is available for the residents to file complaints against the overall projects, and the overall planning process has also been reduced. Secondly, sir, it has also allowed for post facto environmental clearances, wherein the industries can receive environmental clearances and the due diligence can be undertaken afterwards. So the construction projects start before and the environmental clearance is submitted afterwards. This has also been pointed out by the Supreme Court as a violation of the overall environmental jurisprudence. Sir, in my regards, the environmental impact assessment rules should integrate the overall concerns of environment in a more holistic manner, where the local communities are given adequate window to respond to the concerns they have with respect to the projects coming up in their region.
Okay, how EIA is different from SEA, means Strategic Environmental Assessment?
Sir, I'm not exactly aware of the term SEA, but I would like to take an honest guess.
Okay, strategic means the policy, planning.
Okay.
Okay, so that should be pro-environmental. That is the meaning of SEA, means Strategic Environmental Assessment.
Okay.
That is a new move. Okay.
Okay,
So,
thank you, sir.
okay, fine. Like Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, there are two wings in that, rural and urban, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
So in the urban areas, you can see a lot of exercises have been going on, fundings are more. But in the when you look into the rural area, the funding is highly deficient. And because of that, whenever the agriculture waste come up, so they burn down the entire field to prepare for the new agricultural cycle. When they are doing this, so it is causing the pollution. You can see the stubble burning case in the northwest. India happened in Punjab, Haryana, and that is polluting the surrounding region, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
So now, in this regard, so what the government is taking an action to stop the this called rural pollution, rural environmental degradation things.
So the first thing is that the government is doing is that the government is promoting the idea of waste to wealth. For instance, stubble in case of northwest parts of India are now being used for being used in various thermal power plants in parts of coal to produce energy. Secondly, sir, government is also establishing various biogas plants in order to create biofuels from bio waste. in rural regions specifically. These are the two things that I can recall.
Okay, fine. Great. So now, so you like till I was going through your dev, one thing I find it out, like you were just in the 10th and 12th, you were just science from PCM, like physics, chemistry, math, you passed around with very good percentage, around 95%, very good. But then you shifted to the humanities, isn't it? Like the BA you did MA.
Yes.
This was a strategic shift from the science, from very good student to the humanities. What was the reason behind it?
Sir, actually, after class 10th, my parents had an inclination that I should study engineering. And therefore, they asked me to pursue sciences in my class 11th and 12th. And I took it out of adherence to them. But as my class 12th got over, I had a decent percentage in my boards. But I always had in my mind that I should go for civil services. And I had a very strong interest in political science, like since my childhood days. Therefore, I took that strategic decision that I'll make that shift from that of sciences to the arts, and I decided to pursue a BA rather than going for a BTech or BSc.
Okay, great, great. Very good. Just thank you. So next to Gopal sir, I have done.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Srinivas,
Sir, good morning.
please, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Shashank, it's quite interesting that you choose political science. It's good
Yes,
that
sir.
since political science is your optional, but one thing I wanted to know from you is, are the democracies eroding globally, which is the cause for this geopolitical turmoil across? Do you think the democracies are no longer sustainable?
So there has been a rising trend of democratic deficit globally, where we see rise of authoritarian and strongman leadership coming up in various parts of the world. This is also a conflict that is still going on in United States as well, where democracy is now being debated and contested over with respect to populism, increasing protectionism and authoritarianism at the same time.
So when it comes to populism, can we also identify these cultural freebies, distinctly different from economic freebies? We are
Yes,
only
sir.
looking at the economic freebies, but we are
Yes,
ignoring
sir.
the cultural freebies.
So the cultural freebies that we might be referring is, in my understanding, one can be the overarching denialism of the entry of migrants. So the anti-immigration movement is one such aspect to it. So the second is the open and the continuous denigration of the minorities in some of the countries. The rising Islamophobia may be one representation of that. So these are the two. So the third that I can think of is the backlash against the rising trends of homosexuality and the LGBTQ community, and also the anti-feminist backlash that we are seeing through rise of models like Andrew Tate is also part of this cultural freebie movement.
So good. So interestingly, when you look at this culture as a source for power these days, to what extent can we justify the introduction of Bhagavad Gita as a compulsory curriculum in some of the states which intended to introduce it at the high school level? Because the Constitution guarantees freedom from religious instruction. So from that point of view, how do we separate the study of religion from religious instruction? Where does this fit in? The introduction of Bhagavad Gita, does it fit into study of religion, or should it be considered as a religious instruction?
Sir, in my understanding, certain aspects of religion that are very much an integral part of our culture should not be considered as a religious instruction, but should be considered as a learning that the students might have would be very fruitful to them in the long run. Learnings from Bhagavad Gita, Ramayana, also from the Guru Granth Sahib, and even to a certain extent Bible, would be very fruitful in this regard, sir.
But making it mandatory.
The freedom from religion.
Making it mandatory as part of the curriculum, is it not enforcing religious instruction?
Yes, sir. I would agree to that point. Making anything mandatory and making anything coercively implemented in terms of religious instruction goes against the very aspect of the freedom of the institutions to promote education in this regard. If it is taken up as a part of the NCERT syllabus or by the CBSE or by any other organized board, that is a justified move. But if the state makes it mandatory, then that would be that would harbinge the very ideals of secularism.
And interestingly, when you talk about culture, then how do we look at this hijab issue? Do they not have the right of conscience? Those who wanted to practice their own religion?
So the hijab issue is a very controversial issue, especially in some of the states like Karnataka, where the schools have asked the female children to not wear hijab while coming to the school. So my own opinion in this regard is that in public places, a person should have complete freedom as to what he or she should and want to wear. Of course, considering public morality and decency as some of the parameters intact. However, with regards to entry, there have to be certain rules and codes of conduct that should be adhered to. And in this regard, the female students should be asked to wear school uniforms that are actually compulsory in schools to be worn at a priority.
So interestingly, another important aspect that we come across these days is the over-reliance on technology. Do you think technology can be an alternative to the capacity of the state?
Thank you.
So can you please repeat the question?
Can you
once?
think technology can be an alternate to the capacity of the state? Because of the excessive reliance on technology for service delivery. Can it replace the capacity of the state? The bureaucratic capacity?
Yes, sir. Sir, I refrain from thinking that technology can replace the capacity of the state because the function of the state is so overarching that citizens' interface with the state is very common. However, technology can bolster the ability of the state to deliver the services. For instance, technological interventions in delivery of passports, or let's say in delivery of other government services like driving licenses and among others, have reduced the overall possibilities of corruption that might occur when the citizen interacts with the state. So technology can definitely improve the citizen-state relationship by pushing the distance between the two, by increasing the distance between the two. But I don't think so that technology can overarchingly replace the state.
So what do you think with respect to the stress on this perform, reform, transform? What does it aim at?
So the idea of reform, perform, and transform was given by our Honorable Prime Minister to the cadets of civil services at the Foundation Day. So the main idea of our Prime Minister was that the civil servants should come out of the existing bureaucratic ruggedness of the laws, where the legal regulations and complexities actually deter them from taking actions, and at the same time deter the citizens from pursuing business and entrepreneurship. And in a way, they should remove some of the existing legal regulations and bylaws at the national, state, and the local levels. Secondly, they should aim to perform by focusing not on rule-based governance, but on role-based governance, where they should specifically try to address the specific issues rather than mere adhere to the rules. And by doing the above two, they should aim to transform the overall society. Various schemes like aspirational district and aspirational blocks model is also attempting to go ahead in this direction.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, I'm done.
Okay, yeah, good. Thank you, Srinivas Garu.
Right.
Okay, Mr. Shashwat, we have taken nearly 1 hour and 20 minutes for this mock personality test. Usually, as you know, the UPSC takes only about 25 to 30 minutes. And considering the fact that you have been interacting very constructively with the panelists, I think we were tempted to take more time. Now, what I propose to do is to briefly tell you, because this mock test is only to give feedback about your strengths, and if at all there are some areas where you can improve upon, you should try and improve before the interview personality test date. So it's a constructive criticism, as you understand.
Yes, sir.
So let me first give you my feedback on how you have performed in this mock test, and the others will follow. And finally, if you have any questions or doubts for which you require clarification, you may do so at the end of the feedback. Okay. Now let me first of all tell you that you have your performance has been outstanding, very positive in your responses. You are at ease to when you know the panelists put different types of questions, variety, and some questions very deep to get the best out of you. So you are at ease for all the questions, and your answers also have been very logical and balanced. Example, when you were asked about the labor laws, you talked about the ease of doing business, which is required for the employers, and at the same time, the dispute redressal mechanism that is put in place in the law. So that kind of a balanced answer is always advisable to be given. You are well informed, and maybe your fellowship with the MP, where you would have dug out a lot of information out of research, has really helped you in responding very well. And your articulation also has been very good. At the same time, let me also tell you, you know, that when I asked you about the challenges of the civic administration and the municipal commissioners in Varanasi
Yes,
and
sir.
Delhi, you basically touched upon the superficial aspects, you know, like to
Yes,
whom
sir.
the NDMC commissioner had to report to. But fundamentally, in most of the municipalities and corporations in the country, as you yourself, with the course of discussions, pointed out, that wastewater treatment is a challenge for Varanasi municipality. Okay, similarly, solid waste management is a challenge for the municipality. So you should have basically touched upon these aspects when talking about the challenges confronting the municipal commissioners in the country. So that's how the focus is on the real problems. I think that would be better, you know, in an interview. Also, what you said is relevant, but then you touched upon the superficialities and perhaps applicable to the personalities of different municipal commissioners and not in relation to the interface with the citizens. Okay, just keep that in mind. Not that you know there are right answers and wrong answers, but the personality test is basically to look at how you observe, you know, the issues. And then occasionally you are responding. You are responding maybe once or twice. I noticed even before the panelist, you know, completed his question. You were in a hurry to respond. So pause, and at the same time, your pause also should not be very long, as you have taken. I don't know whether it is on account of tech problem or you took a few seconds to respond, to think and respond. But then if you have to take a few seconds to respond, you may ask the panel member if you could take a minute or so or half a minute before you respond.
Okay, sir.
Okay, instead of keeping quiet and thinking about it, you may do so, which will keep you in good stead. Also, sometimes when you have to explain the phrase in relation to, you started twice or thrice, I heard you saying with regards to. The correct usage is with regard to, not with regards to.
Okay, sir. Yes, sir.
And finally, you know, when you perhaps did not hear the question right, you asked the panelists to repeat the question. Now, it sounded as if you wanted the panelists to rephrase the question, which is not correct. So you should avoid such things. If at all you were not able to understand the question, you could perhaps say, sorry, sir, I could get you right, or I didn't hear you properly. Would you please repeat the question? Okay, that will be a positive way of asking the panelists to.
Okay.
If he wants, he would reframe also. But then you should not ask for reframing. It sounds as if you are asking the panelists to reframe the question. All right. Otherwise, for the first time as a candidate appearing for UPSC interview, I think you are appearing for the first time. You have done exceedingly well, and you have very bright chances of getting a very high mark in the personality test. Okay. Now I would request Reddy Garu to respond.
Thank you, sir.
I have a couple of points to make it here. One is you are a well-informed and very articulate in your answers. Your answers are generally good and balanced. when a conflict situation, especially international conflicts, there is no completely, you can't say somebody is right, somebody is wrong. You should have a balanced approach. And you rightly hit on the main point, that is, in the Israel-Palestine, when I asked you, he said two-state policy that was advocated for the last so many years, and a number of state countries are still advocating that. That may be the possible solution. But strangely, when I asked about the Indian stand on the whole thing, we have changed from the beginning of the conflict to now. We were totally with Palestine at one stage. In fact, we boycotted some of the Israeli thing. Rather because of the defense requirements and other things and liaison, we have shifted to this side now. But at the same time, we have a role to play in the UN, and our ambassadors are playing, sometimes abstaining, sometimes going for vote. What I want you is to, because you are international relations man, especially when their conflict is taken, go into the details why we have taken. There are certain reasons projected by our own ambassador there. Permanent representative has given reasons, and also our foreign secretary has given. So these points have to be fine-tuned and kept in mind when you are answering. There is a reason to change, because moreover, there is no permanent foe and permanent friend in that diplomacy. In fact, that keep on changing on the environment and situation. That point has to be highlighted. And another thing, once you take a stand, whether it is right or wrong, stick to it. Don't change. People try to confuse you with some leading questions, but stick to it. And as you stick to the two-state policy, you should, even if you say Israelis, in your opinion, that's why I ask your personal opinion. If you feel that they have killings are disproportionate to the harm they have done to Israelis, then you should say so clearly. You are a human being, basically. You have your human feelings. As an officer, you have a different stand altogether. That has to be distinguished. And otherwise, I could see you have a good chances of getting a good marks in the interview, because you have articulate way of giving and a balanced replies. And all the best.
Vivek
Yes,
Garu?
sir.
Mr. Vivek? Okay, Mr. P.S. Singh.
Shashwat, just have a small feedback to give you. Just as the sir said, like some of the answers you have given very good. Just I like it, and you have a great chance to make it. Number one. Number two is, so some of the answers you have given on environment, which is very general and very superficial, I can call. I'm using the same term which the sir has used it. So be specific while you are quoting the examples. Okay. Like industrial effluents, what are the municipal waste? Okay, what are the excise has done? You have not quoted the recent examples. I think in December 2023, government has invested around more than 19,000 crores in Varanasi development plan. Okay, for these sewage. That's what to be inducted. I was hoping you will be specific and quoting this example, which recently happened. Okay, number one. Number two is like environmental topic when we talk about the Himalayas and all, because Himalayas is such a geography which is experiencing large number of casualties and attracting large number of tourists too. So when you are balancing the view, look at the proper ecotourism or other sustainable development or tourism project. You have to plan it properly. So you talked about geography, you talked about geology, you talked about development project. Just have the 7 to 8 specific points to mention there. Okay, because of human reasons, because of natural reasons, because of socio-economic reasons. Just be specific like that. So as a result, the panelist will came to know like you have different dimensions are there, because you are in a hurry to complete their answer like 1 or 2 sentences and then run away. So don't do that in case of environmental topic, because it's such a topic. If you are able to grasp it, it will give you the new area of topics. Okay. So that's one my suggestion, because it's like a chakra view. Okay, once you are entering into right arena, like what this political IR and all, which you are doing very good actually, because it's your option. You are able to do it. When I talked about certain Varanasi or Himalayas or other general things, because it is expected, environmental topics is known by everyone. Okay, nowadays, because a life mission government is going on, or climate change, what we are doing it, Himalayas are experiencing a lot of situation, cyclones are there, just aware with that. When you're talking about the stubble burning and all, so stubble burning, the solution part I was expecting. When you're talking about generalize, there are two aspects of the answers. One is the cause, second is the solution. Be specific in the cause, like 5, 6 reasons, whatever the specifics are there. Second is the try to give maximum number of innovative solutions along with examples. If you have a data or some case studies, examples, do. Another thing what I identified, you are quoting the very old examples, like Chopra committee was like Uttarakhand incident which happened actually in 2013.
Yes, sir.
Isn't it?
2014,
Right.
15.
When there was a casualty, no? There like um, that called cloudburst and that all this happened. More than 6,000 people lost their life. You talked about that incident. Like recent, what happened, you completely skipped that. Please be specific in the recent time. That's what point is. Current affairs part you have to little work on. Recent, like 2, 3 months of the current affairs aspect. That's my feedback. And you are 100% great chances to make it. Sir, your articulation was very good. You are spontaneous. Okay, no artificialities were there in that. So next one, I talked about the heritage, cultural heritage, natural heritage, and geological heritage. When I'm using that term, because here you just go through 3 terms clearly once again.
Okay, sir.
Right. Okay, geological heritage, I think you were wrong in that.
Yes,
So
sir.
like fossils are there. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, right.
Right. There are certain areas in India. Recently, we have a natural heritage has been declared by monuments has been declared. Some society has been created in New Delhi. A lot of things have been happening on a geological heritage by the central government recent years. Work on, but cultural heritage and natural heritage, you were right. But geological heritage, there was some problem in that definition. Now, when you're talking about environmental impact assessment, IAS was okay. Somewhat you have to give right 2, 3 points, the time period and all. So strategic environment assessment, you was a little unaware. Just go through it. It is a new dimension in EIA which has been added up. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Srinivas garu?
Sir, a very good comprehension because he is a PSR student that reflects. And even when I was probing, he maintained a consistency and balance in terms of answers and very sharp understanding, thinking, that is something extraordinary because we normally do not come across, students having, even the aspirants having such a deeper and sharp understanding with respect to the questions probing that I try to create. But overall, sir, I think he has a very bright chance of succeeding because not only with respect to his articulation, but even with respect to his comprehension. Comprehension is also well informed and very structured, well structured as far as politics is concerned. This is where I look at it because I offer to teach PSR. That's the reason why I was asking him this question. Thank you, sir.
Good, good. Vivek garu?
Thank you, sir.
Are you there? Okay, I think you had enough of constructive feedback and criticism wherever required. Now, Shashwat, if you have any doubts or clarifications to seek, you are welcome.
No, sir. I got the most of it, and on the subject part, I'll have to work a little more.
Good. When
for
is your
instance, on
interview?
So the date has not come yet.
Not come. Anyway, all the best to you. I'm sure you will
Thank you,
come out
sir.
successfully. All the best. God bless you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir.